Sairam students, and welcome back in this session. Today we will continue with our lesson from the Beehive, that is lesson 9, The Bond of Love, written by Kenneth Anderson. So before we continue with the lesson, we'll just do a quick recap of whatever we have learned in our previous class. It is a story of love and affection between a human being and an animal. The narrator had found a sloth bear which he had gifted to his wife. She named him Bruno. Very soon, Bruno became a part of the family. The bear became very attached to the two Alsatian dogs and to all the children of the tenants living in the bungalow. So the Bruno became very fond of all the people in the narrator's family and the people living around there. Bruno used to move about freely in the house. So they did not tie him up. So he used to move around really freely. Once he accidentally consumed barium carbonate, a poison kept to kill rats. We saw that he consumed this barium carbonate which was kept to kill the rats in the library. Then the narrator rushed Bruno to the nearest vet where he was treated. On another occasion, he consumed a gallon of old engine oil, which was kept for the termites. But however, it had no effect on Bruno the bear. So he was really very mischievous. So students, now let's continue with our lesson. The months rolled on and Bruno had grown many times the size he was when he came. He had equaled the Alsatians in height and had even outgrown them, but was just as sweet, just as mischievous, just as playful. So Bruno started growing bigger and bigger in size as the months rolled on. He almost equaled the Alsatian, that is a breed of dogs they had in their house, in its height, and even outgrown them. Means it had grown even taller than those Alsatians. It had grown really big, but was really sweet and was mischievous and very playful as ever. And he was very fond of us all. Above all, he loved my wife and she loved him too. She had changed his name from Bruno to Baba, a Hindustani word signifying small boy. And he could do a few tricks too. So he was really fond of everyone in the family, and the narrator's wife was really fond of him, and Bruno was also fond of the narrator's wife. She even changed his name to Baba, which means a small boy, a Hindustani word signifying a small boy. So he also could do some of the tricks. At the command Baba wrestle or Baba box, he vigorously tackled anyone who came forward for a rough and tumble. Give him a stick and say, Baba, hold gun, and he pointed the stick at you. So he was taught all these commands and things. He was able to understand whatever they used to speak. So whatever command given, he used to follow that. For example, like we have, if he is asked to wrestle or box, he used to do that immediately with someone who is in front of Bruno. Also, he would hold a stick and pretend to have a gun in his hand. Ask him, Baba, where's baby? And he immediately produced and cradled affectionately a stump of wood which he had carefully concealed in his straw bed. So there was a straw bed made for him where Baba or Bruno used to take rest. There was a stump of wood, means a log of wood, which he used to consider to be his baby. So whenever he was asked to produce his baby or find out where his baby was, he would take the stump of wood and hold it affectionately in his hands. But because of the tenant's children, poor Bruno or Baba had to be kept chained most of the time. So, however, because he had grown really big, the children were a little scared of him, so he had to be chained he had to be chained most of the time. He was put under the chains. Then my son and I advised my wife, and friends advised her too, to give Baba to the zoo at Mysore. He was getting too big to keep at home. So they started advising the narrator's wife that we need to shift him to a zoo at Mysore because he was getting really big and it was difficult to keep him in the house. After some weeks of such advice, she at last consented. Hastily, and before she could change her mind, a letter was written to the curator of the zoo. So finally, after a lot of persuasion, she agreed. She agreed to send him to the zoo. Immediately, a letter was sent to the curator. Curator here means a person who is in charge of the zoo. They immediately sent a letter to the curator. Did he want a tame bear for his collection? He replied, yes. The zoo sent a cage from Mysore in a lorry, a distance of 87 miles, and Baba was packed off. So when he received the letter, he said he would love to have Bruno in his zoo. So he sent a cage from Mysore in a lorry or a truck, and Baba was packed off to the zoo. We all missed him greatly, but in a sense we were relieved. My wife was inconsolable. She wept and fretted. For the first few days, she would not eat a thing. So they all missed Bruno greatly because he had become a part of their family. But they were also relieved that it was very difficult to keep him at home. However, the narrator's wife wept and continuously fretted, means she was really getting irritated and frustrated and was feeling really bad that Bruno was not at home. For the first few days, she did not even eat anything because of the separation. She was not able to bear the separation. Then she wrote a number of letters to the curator. How was Baba? Back came the replies. Well, but fretting, he refuses food too. So now here the narrator's wife started writing letters to the curator asking about the well-being of Bruno or Baba as she called him. And he also the curator replied stating that he too was not very much fine and was refusing to eat food, just like the narrator's wife. After that, friends visiting Mysore were begged to make a point of going to the zoo and seeing how Baba was getting along. So now the narrator's wife was so fond, she was missing Baba so much that she used to inform the friends, whoever was visiting Mysore, she would ask them to visit the zoo and find out how Baba was doing, what he was doing, how he was getting along. They reported that he was well but looked very thin and sad. All the keepers at the zoo said he was fretting. For 3 months, I managed to restrain my wife from visiting Mysore. So again, even Baba was fretting, in the sense, was not happy, was not relaxed, was very irritated. But he was managing somehow, though he was looking very thin and sad. That is what the friends reported. Whoever went to see him reported this. And it was almost 3 months now. The narrator tried restraining his wife from visiting Mysore. Then she said one day, I must see Baba. Either you take me by car or I'll go myself by bus or train. So I took her by car. So now after this, she was not able to control herself. She informed, or she said, that she had to see Baba in some way or the other. She also said that if he would not take her by car, she would do it herself. She would manage by going by bus or train. Finally, they left by car. Friends had conjectured that the bear would not recognize her. I had thought so too. Conjectured means they had made an opinion or guessed that after so many months, the bear would not recognize the narrator's wife. And the narrator also thought the same way, that he would not recognize them. But while she was yet some yards from his cage, Baba saw her and recognized her. He howled with happiness. She ran up to him, petted him through the bars, and he stood on his head in delight. So they thought the bear would not recognize them, but however, from a long distance itself, from the cage, Baba recognized her and was howling with happiness. And the narrator's wife immediately ran to Baba, petted him, hugged him through the bars, and he was really in happiness. For the next 3 hours, she would not leave that cage. She gave him tea, lemonade, cakes, ice cream, and what not. Then closing time came and we had to leave. So almost for 3 hours she was with Baba near the cage. She fed him with all his favorite things like tea, cakes, ice cream, and everything that he loved. Okay, but however, at the closing time, they had to leave the zoo. My wife cried bitterly. Baba cried bitterly. Even the hardened curator and the keepers felt depressed. As for me, I had reconciled myself to what I knew was going to happen next. So there was a very sad situation there where his wife was crying. Baba was crying bitterly because they had to be separated. Also, the in charge of the zoo, the curators and the keepers, they also felt really sad about the situation they saw both of them in. However, the narrator said that he was sure what was going to happen next. Oh, please, sir, she asked the curator, may I have my Baba back? Hesitantly, he answered, Madam, he belongs to the zoo and is government property now. So she was unable to control herself. The narrator's wife asked the curator that she wanted Baba back. But he answered saying that the zoo was government property and it is not possible to send Baba with her. I cannot give away government property. But if my boss, the superintendent at Bangalore, agrees, certainly you may have him back. So he also informed her, pacifying her, stating that in case his boss, who is the superintendent at Bangalore, agrees to send Bruno back, she could get him back. There followed the return journey to Bangalore and a visit to the superintendent's bungalow. A tearful pleading. Baba and I are both fretting for each other. Will you please give him back to me? So, on their way back to their house, they went to Bangalore to visit the superintendent so that they could ask for Bruno out there. She made a tearful pleading. That is, she was really begged to the superintendent, telling that both she and Baba are not very happy. They are not relaxed. They are unhappy that they are not with each other. So she asked him whether he would give Baba back to her. He was a kind hearted man and consented. Not only that, but he wrote to the curator telling him to lend us a cage for transporting the bear to Bangalore. So the superintendent was a really kind hearted man. Hearing her plea, he agreed to send Baba with her. He also wrote to the curator of the zoo at Mysore telling him that to lend a cage for transporting the bear, that is Bruno, to Bangalore. Back we went to Mysore again, armed with the superintendent's letter. Baba was driven into a small cage and hoisted on top of the car. The cage was tied securely, and a slow and careful return journey to Bangalore was accomplished. So now a letter was sent to the curator. He agreed to that because he had to listen to the superintendent. And now Baba was shifted to a small cage and put on top of the car. The cage was tied properly, safely, securely, and the journey back began to Bangalore. A very slow and careful return journey began. Once home, a squad of coolies were engaged for special work in our compound. An island was made for Baba. It was 20 feet long and 15 feet wide and was surrounded by a dry pit or moat 6 feet wide and 7 feet deep. Okay, so they engaged a group of people, workers, who did some special work in the compound, in their compound at their home. They made an island for Baba, a place which was almost 20 feet long and 15 feet wide, such a big area. There was also a pit which was almost 6 feet wide and 7 feet deep. A wooden box that once housed fowls was brought and put on the island for Baba to sleep in at night. Straw was placed inside to keep him warm, and his baby, the gnarled stump, along with his gun, the piece of bamboo. So everything that Baba was fond of initially was placed there in the island that was made for him. They placed straw inside so that he would keep himself warm. The baby, that is his baby, what he used to call the lump of wood, the gnarl, that is rugged or twisted stump, was also put inside the pit there, along with the gun, that is a piece of bamboo which he used to consider as a gun. All the favorite things were put for Baba, both of which had been sentimentally preserved since he had been sent away to the zoo, were put back for him to play with. So the narrator's wife had preserved all these things, all his favorite things, so that as a memory, and however when he was back, she put everything back in the pit to play with. In a few days, the coolies hoisted the cage onto the island and Baba was released. So in a few days time everything was ready. Hoisted means raised by means of ropes or pulleys. They took the cage and put it in the island that was made specially for Bruno or Baba, and Baba was released out there. He was delighted. Standing on his hind legs, he pointed his gun and cradled his baby. My wife spent hours sitting on a chair there while he sat on her lap. He was 15 months old and pretty heavy too. So he was really delighted to find himself back amidst this family. He was standing and pointing to the gun. He took the baby, that is a stump of wood, all his favorites. He spent long hours sitting on the narrator's wife's lap. She also was sitting with him along there watching Bruno. However, he was almost 15 months old and was really heavy. The way my wife reaches the island and leaves it is interesting. I have tied a rope to the overhanging branch of a mango tree with a loop at its end. So this is how wife reaches the island to meet Bruno from their house. So they have tied a rope to the overhanging branch of a mango tree, and there's a loop made, kind of a rope way, so that she reaches the island quickly. Putting one foot in the loop, she kicks off with the other to bridge the 6-foot gap that constitutes the width of the surrounding pit. So she puts one foot on the loop and then kick starts and then crosses over and reaches the pit to meet Bruno. So it is really interesting to see how much bonding was there between this bear and the narrator's wife. The written journey is made the same way, but who can say now that a sloth bear has no sense of affection, no memory, and no individual characteristics? So here, even on her written way, she used to do the same way. She used to hang to the loop that was given and reach her house. So you can see, students, here we know that people have these kind of qualities of affection, but however in this story we understand even the sloth bear has the sense of affection, was really fond of the narrator's wife. So this is a story by Kenneth Anderson about the bonding between the narrator's wife and the sloth bear Bruno. I hope you've understood the story and the lesson. Now let's see what message this story actually conveys to us. The story conveys the message of the need for showing kindness to animals. We need to be really kind to animals. Animals also feel love and express their feelings to those who love them. They too show love and express their feelings to whoever loves them. The affection and love between the narrator's wife and the sloth bear Bruno was a symbol of true love. So as we saw in the story, there was great bonding, great love and affection between the narrator's wife and the sloth bear. This is true love, that she brought Bruno back to her. Bruno showed many qualities like that of humans, such as love, affection, care, and loyalty. So all these qualities were portrayed by Bruno too. Bruno shared a bond of love with the narrator's wife. So he really shared a bond of love with the narrator's wife here. So the title given is really apt, that is bond of love. So now students, you can just go through these value points of the lesson, understand them, make a note of it wherever you can in your notebooks. Just go through them. how he was found, how the bear was found. What was the name given to the narrator's wife? What name she gave to Bruno? What were the accidents that took place in his life? Also, what kind of tricks, what kind of commands he learnt and followed? How the name was changed to Baba. He was also sent to the zoo. And what was the condition of both Bruno and the narrator's wife? How Bruno recognized, even after 3 months of separation, how the Bruno recognized her. This shows the bonding between the two. She requests the superintendent to take Bruno with her. So what arrangements were made to bring Bruno back to their home? And finally, Bruno comes to their home and they are really happy. They spend time happily ever after. Okay, students, I hope you have understood the lesson and the story. Go through them once again, understand it. Now you will get a link where you will have to answer the questions given and submit the same on that particular link. Thank you.